Take out the Johnny Dangs and put in the Geos. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you heard that. In 2026, videos started hitting the internet claiming Johnny Dang caught a sentence for selling fake jewelry and the whole rap world went crazy. But the road that got us here, that didn't start in any courtroom. That started in a Houston flea market almost 30 years ago. So sit down. Here's everything that led to the sentence that had the streets talking. The flea market to the empire. Johnny Dang, born Giang Antoine in 1973 in Jac Lac Province, Vietnam. His pops was a Vietnam War soldier. 1987, his father got on a boat, made it to Texas, and opened up a little jewelry repair spot. Left the whole family behind for 9 years while he tried to build something from nothing. Then 1996 rolls around and Johnny, 23 years old, barely speaking English, no connections, no blueprint, touches down in the States and links up with his father at a South Houston flea market. No showroom, no velvet rope, just a stall, 2 hands, and a grind. That's where the whole thing starts. Not at some fancy jeweler strip at a flea market in South Houston, fixing other people's pieces for bread. But here's what made Johnny different from jump. The man could read the room. He taught himself CAD software, studied what hip-hop was actually asking for. Bigger stones, wilder settings, more personality, and started building in directions nobody else was moving. The industry was sleeping. He wasn't. By 1998, he opened TV Jewelry in Sharpstown Mall in Houston. And the piece that was going to put his name on the culture forever was already in motion. Custom grills. Now, grills weren't new to hip-hop. They existed. But the process of getting them had a problem that kept a lot of people out. They would file your teeth down to make the fit work. On God, they were grinding on your teeth. Permanent, painful. A lot of artists wanted the look, but weren't trying to get their actual teeth messed up to get it. Johnny figured out how to make a custom secure grill without filing down a single tooth. That one thing alone changed the game. The door swung wide open and the people walking through it were exactly the kind of people whose cosign could put you on the map for life. Around 2000 to 2002, Houston rapper Paul Wall pulled up to the flea market, saw what Johnny was doing, and the two locked in. Wall had the relationships inside Houston's rap scene. He knew everybody. Johnny had the skills and the technical edge nobody else had. Together, they started pushing grills from a niche piece to something the whole country was pulling up for by name. Then came the moment that turned the shop into a cultural landmark. A different jeweler sold Nelly a grill and passed it off as a Johnny Dang joint. T, who thought it was authentic, called Paul Wall, looking to get Nelly the real thing. Thing is, Wall and Dang had never even linked with Nelly directly. But instead of correcting T and moving on, they made a move that most people wouldn't. They built Nelly a custom $20,000 grill and just sent it to him. No invoice, just goodwill. That decision led to a feature on Nelly's 2005 Smash Grills, which went to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Johnny was in the video. Track got a Grammy nod, and for the first time the name Johnny Dang was attached to a #1 record. From there, the names just kept adding up. Beyoncé, Lil Wayne, Travis Scott, Megan Thee Stallion, Gucci Mane, Post Malone, generational artists back-to-back, all pulling up to the same shop. He built custom invisible baguette settings for Quo that nobody had seen before. That Mexican OT dropped a whole track called Johnny Dang. He jumped on Paul Wall's Stay Iced Up. And by 2016, Johnny Dang and Company opened a 16,000 square foot store in Houston, the biggest custom jewelry and grill shop in the world with a whole team running it. But here's the thing people got to understand about why this whole story hit the way it did. In hip-hop, a jeweler ain't just a jeweler. They're family. They know your budget, your taste, what you're trying to say when you pull up somewhere dripped out. That's a level of access that almost nobody in an artist's circle gets to. And Johnny Dang had earned that level of trust with some of the most powerful people in this industry over almost 30 years. That's exactly why what came next in 2024 cut so deep, because it didn't come from an outsider talking noise. Came from somebody who had been sitting at the table. Public split. Sauce Walla, Houston rapper, one of the most recognizable faces in Johnny Dang's whole client book for years. They took pictures together. Walla rocked Dang's pieces in videos, on stage, in every interview. He was out here doing free promo every time somebody asked about his smile. By some accounts, the man had dropped somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million at Johnny Dang and Company over the years. However you cut that number, nobody was arguing that Sauce wasn't one of the shop's most loyal, most public, most consistent clients. He wasn't just a customer. He was walking around as a living, breathing billboard for what Johnny Deng could do at the top end. Then August 2024 hit and Walla went on Instagram Live and blew the whole thing up. He jumped on live to show off a new grill, not from Deng, from Plug Geo, real name Jose Mata, a man who used to be one of the top salesmen at Johnny Deng & Company before he left around 2021 and built his own operation. Peace Walker was showing off was a $1 million permanent grill, not removable, in his mouth for good. And the way he announced it left zero room for interpretation.
I'm gonna take out the Johnny Dengs and put in the Geos. I'm sorry. I'm taking out these and I'm upgrading to these.
Upgrading. That's the word that did the damage. He wasn't just switching jewelers. He was calling the switch a step up and doing it in the direction of a man who'd sat on the other side of the counter at Deng's own shop. Every single person watching that live understood what was being said. Johnny didn't go through a PR team, didn't put out a statement. He went straight to camera and aired it out himself.
When you use my name, please, man, f***ing say my name right. Or f***ing don't even mention my name in your mouth. I did nothing wrong to you, bro.
That heat right there wasn't business talk. That was a man who felt personally violated. Years of trust, years of pulling up for somebody, and now his name was being used as the punchline in another man's promo. It stung differently because Houston's scene is tight. Everybody knows everybody. This wasn't beef between strangers. And then Deng took it even further and revealed the part of the story that really made the whole thing sting.
I know you've been had grill for years, so it's time to make the new grill. I even called you to ask you, hey, let's go together for the dinner.
Hold on. So, Johnny had already reached out, already acknowledged it was time for Walla's next piece, even invited the man to dinner. And Walla left that on read, then jumped on live to retire the Deng pieces in front of the whole internet. That's a different kind of cold. Walla's response, he wasn't moved by no one of it.
If we really want to keep it gangster, I really just crying. I really never even see it.
To Walla, Johnny was just being emotional over a business decision. Nothing personal, just an upgrade. Move around. But the move wasn't neutral and everybody in the culture could see that. Plug Geo wasn't just some random jeweler Walla stumbled across online. This was somebody who had worked the floor at Johnny's shop, built relationships with those same clients, then left to build his own thing. Choosing him specifically out of every jeweler on the planet was a message. And Deng fired back with his own videos showing pieces he said he could have built for Walla, turning the whole thing into a creative back and forth where grills were the diss tracks.
I've been busting my ass every day for years, working hard, travel, playing her, but I f***ing do respect nobody.
By late 2024, footage of SS Walla and Deng together at a community event started going around and it looked like the two had squashed it publicly. But the questions the whole situation had put out into the world about quality, about what clients were actually getting for their money, about whether the loyalty was ever real, those didn't disappear when the cameras cut away. They lived in comment sections, in DMs, in conversations between artists who had been watching and were now wondering. And in 2026, all of that came back with a level of heat nobody was ready for. The allegations go viral. March and April 2026, videos start flooding YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram with a specific explosive claim. Feds had raided Johnny Deng's Houston store. Multiple rappers had filed fraud complaints. And the center of the whole thing was one accusation that Deng's operation had been running a long play selling lab-grown diamonds, stones grown in a lab, not pulled from the ground, to clients while calling them natural VBS diamonds and charging them natural diamond prices. Before we go any further, real quick, because this part matters. Lab-grown diamonds are not fake diamonds. They're not cubic zirconia, not some knockoff glass. They are real diamonds, chemically and physically identical to mined ones. The difference is in how they got made and what that means for the price. Lab-grown stones run 70 to 90% cheaper to produce than naturally mined ones. So if a jeweler is charging you natural VVS prices and putting lab-grown stones in your piece, the margin on that transaction is enormous. And the violation is deeply personal because you didn't just lose money. You bought a $400,000 symbol of who you are. And the foundation of it was a lie. That's the nerve these allegations went straight for. And they went for it in hip-hop, the one space in the culture where how you're perceived is everything. And a piece of jewelry is never just a piece of jewelry. Walker reportedly popped back up on live during this wave and jumped into the fraud narrative, bringing his 2024 grievance straight into the middle of the 2026 allegations. His reappearance wasn't random noise. It gave the whole story a face with a documented spending history and a beef that the internet already knew about. That combination of history and fresh allegations was exactly what the algorithm needed to push this thing into every corner of the culture. Plug Gio was in interviews during this period too. And even without making explicit accusations, his presence in the conversation was doing work. He was the insider, the man who had been on the floor, the one who knew how the operation ran from the inside. His willingness to stay in the frame while all of this was circulating gave the fraud narrative a structural credibility that anonymous social media claims never have on their own. Reaction content started stacking up everywhere. Chief Keef was reportedly out here testing pieces publicly, and footage of that test spreading around gave people who were already suspicious something to point at. Lil Durk's name started appearing in threads with indirect warnings. The narrative that the whole rap world was taking their Johnny Dang pieces to get tested started writing itself. Every new clip, every new comment, every new reaction added another layer to a story that was growing faster than any rebuttal could keep up with. Johnny jumped on camera and went to war on his own platforms. He walked through the shop, showed the inventory, called out accounts by name. His team hit every angle. His Instagram, for million-plus followers, became a non-stop rebuttal reel. Pushback was real. It was aggressive, and it came from a man who clearly wasn't hiding from any of it. But it didn't matter how many rebuttals he dropped if the people watching the fraud videos never saw a single one of them. The internet doesn't sort by accuracy. It sorts by engagement. And hip-hop's most famous jeweler is getting raided for selling fake diamonds to Beyoncé and Lil Wayne is not a headline that anybody scrolls past. Correction was fighting an uphill battle against a story that was built to spread. What nobody had fully put together yet. What was still becoming clear even as the reaction content piled up was the machinery underneath all of it. And when that came out, it changed the entire picture. The insider's role. To really understand why the 2026 allegations hit the way they did, why they felt credible to so many people instead of dissolving like most internet rumors do, you got to go back and understand exactly who plugged Gio. Jose Mata was inside Johnny Dang's operation before he left. Because his position in the shop is the whole reason this story had legs. Ma wasn't a background figure at Johnny Dang Company by every account and by the size of what he built after leaving. He was one of the top salesmen in the building. And in a shop operating at that level where a single client is dropping $400,000 in one visit, where every piece is custom and where the entire product is the relationship, the salesman isn't a support role. The salesman is the face of the whole operation. He's the one artists call when they have an idea for their next piece. He's the one who walks them through options, keeps their order moving, handles every detail, and makes sure that when they leave, they feel like they were taken care of personally. At a shop like Dang's, the top salesman is sitting in the middle of some of the most valuable personal relationships in hip-hop. He's holding the keys. So, when Ma left around 2021, reportedly feeling like what he'd contributed to the shop's numbers wasn't being matched by what he was seeing in his check. He didn't leave empty-handed in the way that actually counts in that world. He walked out with relationships, years of them. He knew these artists' tastes, their budgets, what they liked and what they didn't. And he had their numbers saved in his phone. He could reach out at any time and offer the same people something new from someone they already trusted at a shop they'd never been to before. That's what a departure really means in this industry. It's not just one employee leaving. It's a piece of the shop's whole relational infrastructure walking out the door and potentially being pointed at a competitor that happens to be the same person who just bounced. Gio built his thing, started producing grills, and when Sauce Wallah, one of the highest-spending, most publicly visible names in Johnny Dang's entire portfolio, went on live to announce a $1 million permanent grill from Gio and retire his Dang pieces. The signal couldn't have been louder. Everybody watching got the message. There's a new option built by an insider, and it just pulled the biggest client in the building. Dang responded by dropping videos of pieces he said he could have made for Wallah. Better pieces in his view. And trying to put a lid on the competitive message Wallah's switch was broadcasting to every other artist in his client book. But that message had already been received. It was already living in text threads between artists and their managers. Question of whether Dang was still the move was now open in a way it hadn't been before Wallah hit live. Paul Wall, the man who had been Dang's partner since the early 2000s, who built this empire alongside him, who knew the operation from the ground up more than almost anyone breathing, never created an inch of distance. Not publicly, not in any interview. No quiet separation, no vague statements. He stayed locked in with Deng through all of it. And for anybody trying to weigh whether the fraud story had any real foundation, Wall's loyalty was significant. He would have had every reason to step back if the shop had genuinely been running a scheme against clients they both knew and had brought to the table together. Joe's insider status was the scaffolding the 2026 allegations were built on. Gave the whole story a shape that made it feel possible to people watching from the outside. You didn't need receipts if the man who had worked the floor was still in the frame while the accusations were flying. That alone was enough to keep the fire burning. But what that scaffolding was actually holding up, what it turned out to really be supporting. That's where the whole story flips. The deep fake and the verdict. By early April 2026, Houston's Fox 26 was covering the Johnny Deng situation. And they weren't covering it as a fraud case or a federal investigation. They were covering it as an AI deepfake smear campaign. A coordinated hit on a Houston businessman and 25 years of work he built from nothing, executed using fabricated video that millions of people watched and processed as real. Here's what was actually happening. The videos spreading across YouTube and TikTok with titles screaming about raids, sentences, and prison time were in large part built on hyper-realistic AI-generated content, not clips edited out of context, not real footage spun in a misleading direction. Fully fabricated scenarios generated by AI tools advanced enough that a viewer scrolling at regular speed couldn't tell the difference between what they were watching and real documentary footage. Federal agents entering Deng's store, arrest sequences, courtroom moments. None of it happened. All of it looked real enough to share. And here's why it worked so well. A deep fake on its own is just a video. It doesn't carry weight until you put it inside a container of real events. But a fabricated raid video attached to a jeweler who just had a deeply public loyalty split with a major rapper over a former employee who now runs a competing shop and has been sitting in interviews while the beef plays out. That video doesn't land in a vacuum. It lands inside a story the audience already knows. The real events gave the fabricated footage the credibility it needed to spread. The AI deepfakes moved into that container and set it off. As of April 2026, no court records, no police reports, and no mainstream Houston outlet had confirmed any raid, any charges, or any sentence whatsoever. Claims that rappers had filed fraud complaints against Deng unverified. Prison sentence titles fiction built by accounts chasing clicks, not reporting reality. Johnny Deng had not been charged with anything. He had not been sentenced to anything. The insane sentence in every reaction title was not in any court document anywhere because it did not exist. Look at what Deng's response actually looked like during all of this. The back-to-back camera appearances, the shop walkthroughs, the direct call-outs of specific claims and specific accounts. That's not how a man under a real federal investigation moves. That's how a man moves when he's watching something he built over 30 years get dragged through fabricated mud. And the only weapon he has is his own platform and his own face. He couldn't sue a deep fake. He couldn't get a video pulled faster than it was being watched. All he had was his camera, his 4 million followers, and whatever slice of his audience the algorithm decided to show his response to. The rappers who were reacting, the ones testing pieces, dropping warnings in comment threads, watching to see what the tests would come back with, they were reacting to a story the internet had engineered out of real tension and fake footage, packaged with the same production value as actual news. The reaction was real, the sentence was not. Now zoom out for a second because the implications of all this go way beyond Johnny Deng's shop and the specific names in this story. Lab-grown diamonds are a real issue in this industry. Not because they're lesser stones, they're not, but because the 70 to 90% price gap between lab-grown and natural creates a real incentive to misrepresent, and because the average artist dropping 6 figures at a custom jewelry shop has no testing mechanism built into that transaction. Question of what you're actually getting when you wire that kind of money is a question the jewelry world hasn't had to answer publicly before. This saga, even though it ran on fabricated footage, forced that conversation into the middle of a stadium-sized audience that was already watching. Johnny Deng came up from a flea market stall in South Houston in a country he landed in at 23 with limited English and built a 16,000-square-foot institution that had a #1 song attached to his name and the teeth of hip-hop's most iconic artists carrying his work. That story didn't end in a courtroom. The sentence that had the internet going crazy only exists in the titles of videos designed to get you to click before you think to ask whether any of it is actually true. What gets left behind when all the noise dies down is something more unsettling than any fraud case could have been. In 2026, a legacy built over 30 years can be put under real threat by fabricated video, real beef, and an algorithm that genuinely does not care about the difference between the two. The sentence wasn't real. The damage it did was. If you enjoyed this video, click on any of the cards on your screen.